In this module, we'll be looking at concrete equipment. So as we look at the equipment, we're going to be discussing how to use these equipment, where you find it, the purposes of it, and how it can make your job more efficient. So in this second part of concrete tools and equipment, you should be able to identify and describe the use of various pieces of power equipment in the concrete craft. In other words, we'll be looking at mixers and concrete trucks, various types of buggies, buckets, and conveyors and pumps. We're going to look at how to describe the use of power compactors, screeds, vibrators, and trowels. And again, looking at saws and grinders for concrete. So we're going to look at the different types of power equipment, either things that we may have or following through some videos that we can um, look at these types of tools, because some things we don't have because it's too large or expensive, but these things that you may not physically use yourself, but they will come to you. Again, power equipment, again, using things safely. Safety is first with everything. So power equipment is often used to transport, mix, place, and finish concrete. As power equipment increases in size and power, remember that it becomes a greater potential hazard. Large and powerful equipment is unforgiving of errors in judgment. So always think safe. Trucks delivering ready-mix concrete to a job site. It is very large, it's very heavy, it's awkward, so always be in a visual position to see what is going on at all times, and making sure that everyone on the job site know where you are at. Matter of fact, if you ever go to a concrete plant, which you never know. I've been in a few. Um, And again, there's a lot of trucks coming in and out, but that's where they mix everything at. These days, they will put up a temporary site. It may stay. I remember when they was doing a lot of construction downtown, they built a concrete mixing plant on the south side of the loop just to have concrete close by, because they was going through a lot of it. It was made sense because they could transport a lot of the raw materials on cargo boats and get it to that site and unload it. So batch plants measure and mix concrete ingredients. Um, the central mixing plant, it's there to uh, proportion the ingredients, add water, and mix the concrete to transport it to the different locations. So transit mix plants, it prepares only the ingredients for the concrete for transporting. So again, there's plants that would do everything and and have it ready for shipping. So ready mix trucks uh, take on the proportionate ingredients and mix the concrete while driving to the job site. So once they fill it up, that barrel is turning and it's mixing. So after the mixing, the drum slows uh, to aggregate the concrete and prevent the segregation of the materials. So again, all that is done on the to make sure that the mixture is done correctly and done right. I don't know if you can tell the difference in these trucks. The top truck is a smaller truck and has two sets of wheels in the back and the rear, two axles. And but the one below it is a huge truck. I mean, this thing got a lot of concrete in it. You can see because all the additional axles that you find. I count 5 axles in the rear. So that's quite a bit heavy truck. So the chutes is help to bring the concrete closer to your working area. And if it's too far away, you're going to have to use some type of another mechanisms, such as wheelbarrows or buggies, to be able to get it. But a chute are used to extend the reach of the truck. A drop chute help keep concrete from falling too far vertically. Um, so again, that's in this area right in here. Um, Trimmies are used to place concrete under water, and these are different types of chutes that is used to carry concrete to different locations. Another thing about the chutes, they are sectional. So these are multiple sections. So they just snap in place to bring it to the location. Of course, it's limited how far you can take it till you're going to have to, again, use some other type of uh, device to get it to, equipment to get it to the spot where you're working. So portable mixers, portable mixers um, are smaller for smaller batches. And so when you have um, batches that you're going to mix yourself that comes from bags, you can do, like I say, smaller batches. Of course, you're going to do a lot more work. But if you got one of these, it certainly will make your job easier than mixing it yourself in a wheelbarrow. So this speeds up the process. And if you got a larger job to do, this is really handy. If you're doing jobs on a regular basis and like stairs and um, sidewalks, having your own mixer is pretty neat to have, and it's not that expensive. So a tilling mixer has a rotating drum that tilts, and there's a wheel on the side of it right here that you turn to tilt it up or down to pour it out. Non-tilting mixers have a rotating drum that discharges by reversing the direction. So in other words, the auger inside of it turns in the opposite direction and bring it up to where to the exit. A turbine or a vertical mixer uses blades to mix. Paving machines, and a paving machine is a very large self-propelled placement and finishing system. It does everything. Many times these are set on tracks. So they put the tracks in place so it can follow that direction as it's mixing. So they bring in concrete there, and it's going through to do everything. It floats it, it finishes it, um, and use this machine like for highways or larger like warehouse type of floors. So again, a slip form pavement machine forms, it shifts, compacts, and screeds everything. So it's a time saver. Instead of having dozens of people on the job, you just need enough to keep the machine operating. Safety and maintenance. Uh, Safety comes first again. Workers must be specially trained to work with batching plants because there's a lot of rotating equipment, there's heavy materials, many things that can cause harm. So body parts should always remain clear of any moving or hot components as well as the drive and power systems, the motors and the belts and that is turning. There should be guards on everything to protect from those moving parts. Always wear gloves when working with concrete and concrete equipment. Portable mixers and chutes must be thoroughly cleaned after every use because it's a nightmare if it's possible, to clean up equipment once the concrete gets hard. Yes, it can. I've seen concrete trucks that the concrete hardened up inside of it and it's pretty much destroyed a truck. Buggies and wheelbarrows and power wheelbarrows transport concrete across the ground. Again, a bucket moves concrete through the air by a fork truck. And so a bucket is something that holds the concrete. And of course, you got to have a type of uh, fork truck that is designed to handle that type of weight. Conveyors and pumps are used to bring the concrete to places where it's impractical to move by hand. So high-rise office buildings, many times when it's constructed out of concrete, they will have pumps to pump the concrete or using conveyors to move the concrete to places where you need it. Of course, this would be a lot easier way, less manpower to use these components to get concrete to remote locations. Of course, wheelbarrows, barrels, and hand buggies are things that can carry the concrete. Although these are labor-intensive tools, they can move concrete quickly on a smooth path. Now, of course, the path needs to be smoothed, like a hard surface. If it's rocky or muddy, it's impractical. Now, wheelbarrows come in different sizes. So homeowners usually get their shallow ones, but when it's construction, we get the ones that have the highest cubic feet of space capacity in the containers. So two-wheel buggies are easier to control because it's balanced using two wheels instead of one wheel. It provide better balance and do not require the user to carry the things because if you notice the buggy, you can roll it pretty nicely forward to dump out the concrete because of the arc of that bars in front of it that you can use to help tilt it forward. Power buggies, of course, this is will save you a lot, but it can carry more than a wheelbarrow can or a buggy. So power buggies are self-propelled, easier and more efficient than wheelbarrows because it can move concrete faster and carry more of it at one time. Tracked buggies are more expensive and have more complex drive system, but are good for snowy, icy. So in other words, they have tracks on the bottom instead of wheels. So if you're working in the wintertime, that the ones with the tracks can cut through it and maneuver easier through those construction sites. Again, construction doesn't stop. It doesn't matter what time of the year. Yes, do they try to wait till the springtime to do concrete work? Yes, to summer. But can they do it in the wintertime? Yes, absolutely. And sometime it will be areas where you need to close up things because you're fighting against time. Buckets, again, they use a crane to help move the concrete. And that crane will maneuver the opening of a gate to drop the concrete into certain places. So if they building a high-rise office building, they can fill this up and pour it out while guys are working. They filling up again, bringing it to the top. So it becomes pretty efficient. So buckets are used to get concrete to higher or lower elevation because again, using a crane to lift it or to lower it. The optional bucket size is one that is big enough to hold one batch of concrete as mix. So in other words, it's big enough, a full batch to keep guys working. It's not just a little bit, but it's a lot of concrete. Conveyors, again, a conveyor, and you can see the conveyor here. The truck is pretty far back, but they're using a conveyor to move the concrete and drop it where you need it. So conveyors make it possible to deposit large volumes of concrete quickly. They are pieced together in flights, which can allow concrete to move horizontally or vertically if necessary. And you see this on very large job sites, especially when it's spread out to different uh, um, areas. So we're looking at concrete pumps. Again, this is, again, like downtown Chicago. There's some um, structures, commercial buildings, that's high-rise structures that they get the concrete up to those floors. Or if the building completely made out of concrete, they would use these concrete pumps, and they would pump the concrete through these tubes to bring it to where they need it. So it transport concrete from a mixer directly into the forms. Two major types: mechanical piston. So you have a mechanical piston pushing the concrete through, and then the compressed air. And the compressed air will using air pressure to push it through. So if one better than the other, mechanical, of course, pushing its more moving parts, the compressed air, less moving parts, but using the air pressure um, to move a piston through to move it to where it need to go. Um, Typical systems are truck mounted on these units. So safety and maintenance of buggies and buckets. Like anything else, the primary safety concern is struck by accidents because it's moving, and there's a human person driving it, and that person may not know where you are at, so you need to know where they are at. So when everybody is paying attention, accidents are less um, happen to occur. So barrels, buggies, and buckets must be kept clean from concrete buildup. And so the point is that when you finish using it, a thorough cleaning is necessary. Don't allow, matter of fact, all your tools, if you do any type of work, clean up, clean the tools, not waiting till the next day, but taking care of it right then and there. Taking time at the end of your day to spend time to clean your tools, to organize things, get things prepared for the next day. Regularly inspect hardware, welds, chutes, gates, and lifting bells of the buckets. Make sure that everything is operational before you start your day. Again, when we're looking at machinery, conveyors, or pumping systems, many times they're that boom or the distance. We have to look around our environment to make sure that there's certain things that we may not run into or hit, or if there's electrical lines. And if it is, we have to make sure that we keep a certain distance away from those moving components. So sometime calling the power company, the electrical company, to find out what is the voltage in the high voltage lines above the working site, so you can stay a safe distance around those electrical lines. Again, conveyors and pumping systems require constant and timely maintenance, inspections, and service because you're carrying concrete a long distance, and there's a lot of equipment that need to be checked and cleaned. So making sure that time is put there. So pumping system cleaned either with water or with compressed air. Um, a go devil is used to move through pipelines and to push residue concrete ahead of it. So in other words, that's something that's used to help clean your equipment, help clean it. So all personnel must remain clear of the end holes of the cleaning. don't look into it when the thing is working, trying to see if there's a problem. Stand to the side because something might break free, and if you in front of it and you're using air pressure or and other things, it will be almost like shrapnel blowing at you that can cause harm. All right, compactors. There's different types of compactors, and the compactors are used to compact uh, uh, the grade, number one, but aggregate to compact it to make it as a solid surface where you're doing pouring your concrete is at. So motorized handheld or hand-controlled vibrators or ramming units. Um, it's for a reason to like I said, pack things down, but also sometime if it's using the equipment, it's a vibrator that take the air pockets out of the spaces to make sure that it is a solid base. The solid base is everything when you're working with concrete, because if it's a loose base, it can cause it the shifting of the ground, which can damage the concrete surface. Vibrators used to consolidate the concrete, to take out air bubbles, to take out voids, to make sure that it's there to have a solid without voids in your concrete. So includes internal vibrators, external form vibrators, and vibrating screeds. Again, to make sure that uh, to remove voids. Internal vibrators placed in the concrete, the full depth of layer being consolidated at least 6 inches into the underlaying layer must be properly sized for the form, so areas of influences overlapped. So again, as the filling concrete in these internal vibrators are there to take voids away. It's here's the reason why. If there's a pocket, you pour concrete, you finish it off at the top, and then you pull the forms out, then you see gaping voids in it. That's a weak spot. Either you got to come back and repair it, fill it in, or using again a vibrator to help with the concrete and using it to fill in um, any voids that's there. So again, um, having it put in the right location to help um, with removing any type of um, air pockets inside the concrete as you pour it between the forms. Okay, these are external forms. It's actually what you see here is um, the forms, and on the backside is the walls attached to the forms. It could be plywood, but this would be attached to it, and it would vibrate to help remove any pockets again. So it's useful for places difficult or impractical to insert an internal vibrator. It puts stress on the form, so the forms must be built to handle the additional stress, that movement. So mechanical forms is probably the best type to use because you're using metal forms to hold the plywood together, and it's designed for these types of forms. A wooden form wouldn't be the best type to use. Areas of influence must overlap. Vibrating screeds. Remember what a screed is? A screed is um, used to level out the concrete as you pour in the concrete into the forms, like for a sidewalk or a patio or let's say a basement floor um, or a warehouse floor. It's there to level it out, but again, this vibrating. It can be used on slabs up to 8 inches thick. So again, it flatten it out, but actually helping filling any voids that may be in your concrete pour. Reduces friction between screed form and the concrete, which makes it easier to move ahead. And so a person walks behind it, and they bring in that thing as it that motor on it is actually moving the mechanism that will vibrate the put vibration in that screed. Power trowels. This like I was almost like a fan blade that turns and it moves around, circular motion, and move across um, the concrete. And so it speeds up. Instead of hand troweling, it's have a power trowel. So with proper blade placement, it can be used for floating as well as troweling. Okay, making sure you got the right blade on it to clean it up to make a better finish on it. Often equipped with water tanks and spray heads, and what that just help to keep the bring the moisture up and keep the concrete from drying out, and so it can cure. Can be equipped with a float pan um, and initial stages of troweling. Again, the troweling blades can be made of plastic or steel. It depends on the user. Okay, looking at continuous safety, and again, when we lift these tools, they're heavy, uh, very heavy. So making sure you're using your PPEs. So the proper lifting techniques, not using your back, using your knees, or getting a couple people to help lift instead of doing it by yourself. Now, most of these power equipments uses combustion engines, which can produce monoxide, which is poisonous if it's not adjusted correctly, the gasoline engine. It should not put out any carbon monoxide. Typically, it's carbon dioxide, which is not poisonous. So again, make sure your equipment is working correctly. So again, using this equipment, you don't want to use it indoors, where there's no ventilation. If there's no ventilation, it will produce carbon monoxide at that point. So again, if you got electric vibrators, make sure it's connected to a ground fault circuit interrupter to make sure that if there's any shorts, any voltage leakages, that it will protect you from electrical current. When working with uh, equipment, it's always important when there's engines or other type of electrical motors and things that it has a lot of torque, and we need to make sure that the equipment is in good condition. But more than that, that the safety protection guards and shields around the moving parts is always in place. So again, never place hands or feet inside the blade guards of power trowels, because it certainly would be dangerous, that you can injure yourself. Two cycle engines would typically require a gas oil mixture. You can buy it pre-mix, or you can mix it yourself by adding the oil to the fuel in your tanks. But make sure it's in the right ratio. And it's right there on the container that tells you how to mix it. However, they do not require periodic oil changes like four-cycle engines, because you're adding oil to the fuel as it going through the combustion engine is actually lubricating it. However, four-cycle engines require to change the oil on a regular basis like you would do your car. Spark plugs must also be service cleaned or replaced to make sure that it is firing correctly. Before use, inspect each component for damage or significant wear. Also, ensure hardware is in place and tight, and that the guards are in place and functional all the time. So when it comes to screeds, vibrators, or power trowels, it must be cleaned as immediately after use, or it can damage it once it hardens up. So always be aware of keeping your tools in good working order. A walking saw, again, there's guards on those too, and be sure to keep the guards on. Other things that's important to get long life out of it, the blade is expensive that cuts the concrete, and it uses water to help keep dust down, but also keep the blade cool, keep it from wearing out faster than it should. So keeping water on it makes a lot of sense for your own protection, keeping dust down, but also protecting the tools. So walking saws are pushed slowly through a pre-marked cutting line and vary in size. So there's many different sizes depending on the type of uh, cuts you need to make and how long. They make handheld ones, and of course they make rolling ones. But they all work very similar, using a diamond blade that will cut through the concrete. Special diamond blades are used for easy self-cutting or to wet cut cured concrete. Many require water to irrigate the blade, again, to keep it from wearing, keeping the blade cool as it's cutting through the concrete. And this is the hand type uh, of power saw, and it works just like a power one, but you hold it in your hands, and you use it for multiple things: cutting blocks, cutting concrete, cutting bricks. So again, it's a concrete saw, and it has a blade on it too. Many they have some that can use water, but basically it is designed to be outdoors, and it kicks up a lot of dust from when it's cutting the concrete. It says that the blades are sulfur and do not require irrigation for cooling. Um, they are not well suited for constant construction. However, uh, and irrigation is usually required for silicon dust management because the silicon dust is not good for you. You don't want to inhale it, but using some type of water is always beneficial. Handheld saws can be used for shallower cuts. Handheld joints sawing is often done in two passes, um, just for safety, um, and because the blade is not very um, large. Making deep cuts, you might have to, and for safety too, multiple cuts. Grinding, basically, this machine that has a grinding wheel that rotates, and it will, they use it for multiple different things, for uh, uh, grinding concrete floors to smooth it out. Let's say if the floor shifted somehow and it got a ridge, which can be a trip hazard, they can use a grinder to level it. They also use it for making, when they building terrazzo floors, to grind it down, to polish it, to bring it into position to where it need to be. So grinders, again, there's two types of grinders used on floor slabs. It's a diamond disc grinder and a stone. The stone is probably the most common because it's a little bit cheaper, the stone. But the stone is a rough grinding stone that will basically use to take down the concrete. And they use water for this too, um, to keep from dust down, or it would have a vac system tied to it that will suck up the dust and collect it in a bag. So there's, again, different types. Again, this is grinding and concrete milling machines. Milling machines will cut different types of grooves into the um, concrete. So milling removes a significant layer of concrete and leave a rough surface behind. You find this on highways many times or runways where they need to have kind of a rough surface so it can grip when there's wet or snowy surfaces. So concrete milling machines are generally set to mill to very specific depths and thicknesses. OSHA silica standards must be followed at all times. Again, silicon dust can cause cancer, so using things to minimize uh, the dust in the air, using respirators, dust masks to keep for inhaling the dust from it, and using water, of course, to keep the dust down. Guards and other safety protective devices must be in place at all times, and it should be functional. Saw blades and grinding wheels must have appropriate speed ratings for the saws used. So running it too fast can cause it to wear out faster and can damage it, or running too slow can cause you to really slow down production. Do not, matter of fact, give you an example. When it's a engine that has a throttle on it, you can speed it up and slow it down. If it's going too fast, a lot of times it will just wear the blade out faster than you want it to. And spending money for a diamond blade is pretty expensive. So do not force blade or grinding wheels into the concrete. Basically, you need to creep it down so it's not locking up or have a kickback, which will damage things. It could damage the concrete and it could damage the tools also. Be cautious when cleaning saws and grinders. Use compressed air due to hazard silicon dust. So just be careful. So use something to keep the dust down. Carbon drill. It's a hard, abrasive, gritty material primarily composed of silicon carbide. Um, Flights is a section that are assembled together to create a concrete conveyor system. And again, when you bringing concrete to far distances, they've used these conveyors to help get it there, and we call the section flights. A go devil is a plug or a slug forced through a concrete pipeline for cleaning purposes. It's just like it's chasing it through, so using air pressure to push it through. In the petroleum pipeline industry, they are referred to as pigs. As a matter of fact, in electrical too. Uh, when they put a plug to run a line through for pulling cable through a conduit, have something very similar to that too. And instead of using they use a vacuum for that purpose. Hose whip. It's the rapid, violent movement of the end of the concrete hose due to the release of compressed air. So again, making sure when there's the holes need to be secured, knowing that it can bounce around if it's let go freely. A kickback is a tendency and action of a saw to fly back toward the operator, especially when contact is made within the wrong portion of the spinning blade or chain. So, in other words, to keep from kickback, holding the saw and slowly cutting into the concrete. It would be necessary. Lock-in is a sudden stalling of a saw blade due to the materials pinching or binding the blade. So always thinking about binding. When cutting something, it can fall into the blade because you're cutting it, and two pieces that you're cutting moves closer, or because if it's not supported correctly, it can cause it to bind the blade and lock it in, which can be again cause damage. Segregation segregation of the concrete components, leading to the large aggregates falling away from the rest of the mixture. Soft cutting, so sawing concrete before it is fully cured. Trimming is the drop shoot, flexible or rigid, and a hopper combination used to place concrete underwater. Got some questions here. Ready-mix trucks. From your readings, you should be able to get this. In ready-mix trucks, blank, are trucks mounted batching plants that can move around a site, have rotating blades or pedals on a vertical shaft, have continuous belt powered by chains or hydraulic drives, mixed at a high speed and agitate at low speed to keep concrete from setting. The answer is D, is mixed at a high speed and agitates at a low speed to keep concrete from setting. The American Concrete Pumping Association, ACPA, standards require that pumping booms and pipelines maintain a clearance from power lines of blank. The only one that's correct is D, 20 feet all the way up to 3,500,000 volts, which is a lot of voltage. So staying away at least 20 feet. If you smart, you stay away farther than that. Which of the following statements about power trowels is correct? Is it A, for floating work, trowel blades are removed and the float pan is bolted directly to the motor shaft? B, concrete is relatively dry, offered less resistance, and beginners find it easier to control the trowel. C, plastic float blades can only be used with a high slump concrete. And D, steel float blades are used instead of the varnishing is a concern. The answer is B, concrete that is relatively dry offers less resistance, and beginners find it easier to control the trowel, so allowing it to set a little bit before troweling with a power trowel. When joints are sawn rather than formed with a joiner, blank, the recommended depth is double. They are cut after the concrete has fully cured. C, no irrigation is used. D, they are often done in two passes. When joints are sawn rather than formed with a joiner, blank, they are often done in two passes.